And just like that, we are back. Home, sweet East Coast fall home, strong water pressure home, large heavy-duty washer and dryer home. But all jokes aside, Ghana is the motherland I knew she would be, and I miss her already. Tonight I recap our trip with a fellow admirer of this beautiful country. So stick around.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the Breezy Moms Podcast, a weekly show that chronicles the adventures of motherhood. I'm Candace. Now let's start the show.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here and to have you here with us in the studio, in the Breezy Moms studio. Thanks for joining us, Erin.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm back. I'm freshly back. I think I'm still on Ghana time zone, but I also feel like I'm settling in at a decent pace. The boys, I think the smallest one, Emery, is a little bit behind because he's still waking up at 5 a.m. and falling asleep now. I guess now it's almost like midnight for them. And so he's exhausted now, but doesn't really want to go to sleep. And then he'll be up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, confused. But we are back and things are sort of falling back into like our normal routine. And I was so excited to talk about this trip. And then I remember that you've actually spent a ton of time in Ghana before. So especially having you right up the block and just being able to come down to the studio. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Sure.
Okay, so Erin is my friend and client and neighbor and all of the things, and a fellow, so you did term abroad in Ghana. And so tell me a little bit about your time in Ghana, and then we'll see if we hit some of the same places.
Sure. So when I was an undergrad at Elon University, I did a semester abroad in Ghana. So I studied at University of Ghana for the spring semester. Mm-hmm. I had a Ghanaian roommate, which was one of the best parts of the experience. And I liked it so much that the next year for our winter term break, I decided to go back to do my independent research. So I spent another month there the following year.
That's awesome. And did you say you went to the University of Ghana?
Yeah.
Okay. I was drinking, so I wasn't sure that I heard that. And so that is in Accra, mm-hmm. right? And it's actually, I don't know if it's in the town, the house where the family house is in East Legon, but we can kind of see University of Ghana from where we are. So It was pretty close. When you went the first time, what were you studying something specific or?
So my degree for an undergraduate was political science. So I took a variety of political science and international relations classes. Mm-hmm. What was really cool about Ghana is, so the previous semester I had studied in China, and that was a really structured study abroad program for, they had us traveling and they had special classes for us in English, and everything was very sort of tightly controlled. Mm-hmm. When I went to Ghana, because English, everything's taught in English, we were just directly enrolled in the university as international students. So okay. I was like any other student enrolled in the classes, kind of on my own. There was an international office, but it was kind of like I was just any other student. So I liked that a lot, mm-hmm. and it was a different type of experience.
And what made you pick Ghana?
I had already been to South Africa, and I wanted to go back to Africa, and it just, I don't know, it was one of the options I had.
Yeah,
and
makes
I was
sense.
just like, okay. And the having the, the English makes it much more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. I did term abroad in high school in Spain and had that kind of the experience you had in China, which is where we were all together in our own little, it wasn't even a real school. It was just like some rooms they rented in a building and they did school for us. And then our immersion part was being with the family that we stayed with. So I could totally understand how being in the school as a student would feel a whole lot different. Yeah. Because it really took a lot of extra work in order to meet people, like local people, mm-hmm. because everything you did was with your group anyway.
Right.
Very cool. And then when you went back the second year to do research, what were you doing then?
So I was looking at women's roles or students' perceptions of women in politics. So I did a lot of qualitative interviews. I think I did some surveys.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the educational part or the academic part of the trip. Let's dive into the fun part of the trip. What were some of the places that you got to visit that you remember most clearly?
So I remember we went all the way up north to a place that has like a wildlife. Honestly, I can't remember the name of it, but it was all the way up at the top of the country. We took a freezing cold bus up there.
Okay.
And stayed in this like little tiny place outside
Is that
of
where
the
Aqua
reserve.
Safari? Like, that's the only thing I'm thinking about, but it might
Maybe.
not be the place.
So we did that, and then we did most of the coast. You know, we took weekend trips, and things like that.
Nice.
So,
and what was your place that you remember the most? Like the favorite place that you saw?
So this is so bad. I don't remember the names of a lot of places because it was so long ago. But we went for a weekend. This little place, a little hostel on the beach. It was owned by like a Swedish woman, I think, who had married a Ghanaian. And we took a bus, and then we took a trotro, and then we had to actually get on a boat, like a canoe, to like get to the place. And so it was really remote, and it was just so beautiful. Like the beach was huge and just empty. Like in the morning, the only people there were the fishermen, and
that's awesome.
And you know, they cooked, and we just like hung out for the weekend. I really liked that. And then we went like into the sort of like marshlands on a boat. That was really fun.
So that sounds like, and I mean, this place that I went to is a hotel, so it's not a little tiny hostel, but we went to visit a place called Bojo Beach, and it was about 45 minutes outside of Accra. I don't know in which direction, but it was the same kind of thing where you get there and then you have to get into a boat. It looks like a canoe, but it is an impressively large size canoe. Like it's got the shape of a canoe, but it's a boat. It's not a ship, but it's a boat. And so you have to get on that, and it takes like 3 minutes to get across the water, and then you're on the beach, and then the other side of the beach is the ocean. And we went, it was probably a Tuesday or a Wednesday, something like that. So the beach was absolutely empty, and we went in the afternoon. So we had lots of service because we were some of the only people on the beach, and it was beautiful. And we were there just in time for that. Like, I feel like for photography, there's amazing time, like right in the morning. And then that sunset time was just incredible on the beach. The only thing is that visiting that beach with children is that all of the beaches, the beaches that we visited, Labadi Beach and Bojo Beach and another part of Labadi Beach, the water is so rough. Like it is not simple, like wading water. That is like full blown ocean.
Yeah.
Like
I don't think I swam. Ocean. I don't think I swam at all. At least in the ocean. We went to some pools, but
yeah, the pool you can swim in a pool. We did pools at the hotel, but that ocean, and I kept trying to explain to the boys that, like, I know you want to get in the water and I want to get in the water, but this water is tricksy, okay? Yeah. Because the water is so shallow for, I don't know, like 100 feet you could walk out and the water is just at your knees. And then in an instant, the water comes in and all of a sudden it's up at your armpits. And you're like, but it was just at my knees. So I was trying to explain to Lincoln, I was like, this water the ocean is trying to take you from me. And especially me, I've had these experiences. This is not my second time visiting Ghana. And the first time we went to this beach, James and I almost drowned in a riptide in this thing because you thought it was so shallow and you go out and just one more wave. And then all of a sudden you're in the actual ocean and it reminds you that it's an actual ocean. So it's like, Lincoln, this ocean remembers me and it's trying to get me through you. And so I was just trying to remind him over and over again, like, I really want you to have a good time. I really don't want to be the person to like be a wet blanket, but you're going to die. I can't save you. Yeah. So that's actually one tip that I wanted to mention to people when you're visiting Ghana is that there are lots of beautiful pools, like at the hotels are beautiful pools and the beach is beautiful to look at. But you really have to be careful in getting into the water because I think about like Miami water or, you go to like Jamaica and you're just waiting on the edge of the water. That's not what this water is at all. But to be fair, it's also beautiful. The beach is really beautiful. And Labadi Beach, which we visited, which is trying to take me and my family, is really fun. They have horses, like people with horses on the beach. There's basically like 3 or 4 bars right on the beach where you can get food and drinks, and then people selling lots of cool stuff, artwork and beads, and there's just a lot of activity. And then the day that we were there, we actually got to see the fishermen. We couldn't see what they were doing. When we got up close, they were pulling in the line from like the netting of fish that they were catching. And that's the first time I got to see one of those fisherman boats up close. And like, I think of a canoe as like a 10-foot canoe. This boat is easily 100 feet and can fit 20 men, like grown ass men in this boat. And so that was a really fun experience, because it was at least 30 guys on this rope trying to pull in this net. It was a big ass net pulling in, I don't know. And then it pulled in all of these fish. It pulled in sea snakes. Like, we were looking at all kinds of crab and shrimp and the sea snakes and all different kinds of fish. And then unfortunately a ton of garbage and debris also came in. So that was really kind of sad and disheartening to see. But there were easily about 100 people hovered around looking at this, like, to see what was coming in. So that was a really fun experience. And then we got to be a little bit too close for comfort to one of those boats. The fishing boat was in the sand. It wasn't in the water. This is what I'm telling you. This water is tricksy. It was in the sand, and it was pretty firmly in the sand. And the boat is beautiful. There's all kinds of carvings and painting and all kinds of things on it. So Emery and I went over to the boat to look at it. And I was standing right behind him. And in the moment that I looked away from him to look at one of the paintings on the side of the boat, a big wave came in and knocked the boat. And so the boat started to sway and started to fall on us like we were on the backside. And the fisherman turned around so fast and grabbed Emery so fast from underneath this boat. And I was just like, this beach is trying to take me. Like, it's absolutely trying to take me. And it was the scariest experience that maybe I've ever had. But there's no but. It was a super scary experience. But the boat is beautiful and the beach is beautiful. And if you could like not get swept away by the
not get killed.
Not get killed. But that's just like a reminder that these things are beautiful to look at. All of these natural or like, natural resources and natural things that we all want to visit. They're living, breathing things, and you really have to be careful, even on the edge. Like, on the edge of the beach, you still have to be so super careful. So anyway, I just had a little bit of an anxiety attack flashing back to that experience. Okay, so did you get to do any of the national monuments that are in Accra, like the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum or the Independence Square, which we got to see?
So honestly, I don't remember doing any of that. I remember going to a jazz club in Accra.
So you did some cool, fun nightclub stuff.
Yeah.
I actually didn't do any of that stuff. I feel like this trip, I was in mom mode. And so by 9-10 o'clock at night, I was exhausted. Okay, well, let's talk about both of those things. So we got to visit, I went with a couple of James's cousins to the Independence Arch. So the larger thing is called Independence Square. Mm-hmm. And it's where they have the Independence Day or whatever kind of like big national events that they have is in this big open square. I want to call it an arena, but it's not really an arena. It's just a big square. And right next to that is Independence Arch, which is the big, it's like a rectangular thing. There's one in Union Square in New York City. There's one in France, like that kind of gate looking thing. And this one has a single black star on the top. What I didn't know was that you could go actually to the top of it. So we went to look at it and we were content to just take some pictures with it in the background. And then this guy came over and he was like, "Oh, do you want to go to the top?" And it was just the three of us. And I was actually worried because I didn't know where we were going and it was dark. I mean, it wasn't dark outside, but you're like going into some place that you don't know where you're going. And I was like, none of us seem pretty confident in what's happening now, but I still want to go. And so we went and climbed, I don't know, it's like 6 stories to get to the top of this thing. But then you can see all of Accra. And the guy gave this really cool history lesson on the Arch and on Ghana and Africa and One Africa and all of these things. We got to take some really cool pictures at the top. And James's cousin, so two things. They also didn't know that you could go up there. The cousins who live there and are from there. They didn't know you could go to the top, and they also had never been to it. So it felt kind of good to be a tourist, but also be experiencing this for the first time with Native people who, and it just made me think that there are plenty of, I'm from New York, there are plenty of places in New York that I've never been to. You just take them for granted. So I really enjoyed that part of the stay was not just me experiencing things, but also because we were there, the family was experiencing things that they generally didn't pay attention to otherwise. So that was that. And then the other space that we got to see that day was the Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who's the first president of Ghana and led them to independence, and I think it's 57. I heard this whole story. It's just like in my head. And so he's got this beautiful mausoleum and in the middle of the gardens in Accra. It's just really beautiful and serene. There's some fountains and like water situations around. It's just really beautiful to go and see and listen to the story about him. So that was really awesome. And then the last thing we did that day was we went to the mall. Was there a mall when you were there? You were there in 2007.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Yeah.
Mall.
So the mall is pretty exciting. And so the mall makes me think of like the late 90s Mall Rat kind of, is it called Mallrats, that movie? So it's a big deal to go to the mall because, one, the things in there are kind of expensive.
No, we did go to the mall.
See?
We did go to the mall.
See, it's a big deal.
It's coming back to me, yeah.
It's a big deal. They're like, oh, do you want to go to the mall? And I was like, for what? They're like, just to go to the mall. It's like, are we 16? Just this whole thing. But you go and it's like a place to be seen. Everybody's dressed and it's fancy because if you're going to buy anything there, then you must have some money, right? So it's really posting in the mall and hanging out. And we went to the movies. It was a fun time. Did you go to the movies while you were there?
So we went to the movies, but it's probably not the movies
right, maybe
you
not
went
that
to.
theater.
It was like I feel like it was near the mall, and it was almost like it was like in a neighborhood.
Okay.
And you went in and you had like a private room where you could you'd pick out the movie you wanted, which was like a bootleg DVD that they put on, and they had like a few couches. So you'd like rent like the whole room. So I went with like a couple of friends, and you
That's hilarious.
They'll put on whatever movie you want for like $couple, whatever,
right?
I don't know.
Okay, so this is an actual theater. It's not a ginormous theater, but it's an actual theater now. It's in the mall, but it's still kind of budget. Like I can't even explain it any other way. I was waiting to see the previews, and the previews, when the previews were done, they were all local. They weren't other movies like regular previews. It's all local advertisements. And when they were done, the screensaver of a computer went onto the screen. I was like, what is happening right now? Never mind, before the movie went on, the movie was supposed to start at 7:15. I'm pretty sure it started at 7:28. And I was like, what kind of thing is this? Actually, of all the things, movies are supposed to start on time. Like and I was all stressed out, and the cousins who were with me, they were like, why are you worried? Like, it's going to be fine. And I was like, the movie's going to start. We don't have any popcorn yet. Where's the beer? Like, let's go. And they are moving so nonchalantly, and they were right. Like, there was no reason to be speeding along. And we went to see Hobbs and Shaw, which is one of the Fast and the Furious movies, which I'm just obsessed with those kind of like loud, nonsensical movie, so it was fun anyway. But having that experience in the movie, one, it's not starting on time and basically being on Ghana time, which is a real thing, especially if it extends to the movie theater. Like it was a whole experience. So the mall was pretty fun, and I think I bought maybe one thing in the mall, but really I was keenly aware that it was so much more expensive, especially since I had already been to a couple of the markets in town.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes me to the markets. Did you get to visit any of the markets?
Yeah, we did a lot of that.
The markets are so much fun.
Yeah.
And like anxiety inducing and incredible and hot and scary, like all at the same time. Mm-hmm. Do you remember which market you went to? There
was one near the university that was kind of smaller, and then there was one farther away. Okay. It's not very specific.
So I went to Medina Market.
Yes, we definitely went there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that one, I've heard that it's not the biggest one, but it still seemed pretty big to me. And my favorite, I mean, it felt like being at Target, especially because I had things that I wanted to get, but I wasn't really sure. I should have made a list, and then I was overwhelmed by everything that I saw. And then everybody is following you, especially me. And I bet you had the same kind of experience. You stick out like a sore thumb, right? Yeah. And even though I'm brown, I still stick out like a sore thumb. I'm like a head taller than everybody around. Yeah. And apparently I was dressed in a way that's not very Ghanaian. Which I didn't think I was dressed inappropriately, but I was wearing running shorts. Not spandex, but like running shorts and a tank top, like a racerback athletic tank top. So I basically look like a tennis player, but nobody dresses like that. Yeah. And I wasn't going to the gym. It was very American, like mom. It was very American mom outfit where you look like you're either going to or coming from the gym, but you're doing neither. Because I was definitely at the market. So anyway, everybody is like swarming me, trying to get me to buy something when I'm just basically trying to keep up with the people who are in front of me and not fall into a ditch and not get hit by a chotro. And you know what I mean? It was just like a whole lot to manage all at the same time and remember what I wanted to buy and try not to get swindled and pay too much money. It just was a whole experience. Do you remember what it was like when you were there?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good mean face. That I use pretty regularly in those situations. And so, I mean, definitely people would approach me, but, you know, I'd be kind of firm, like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And I'd have like sort of the tendency to walk away. Even if I was maybe interested, I would just like, if someone was being too aggressive, I would just like keep going. But I bought a lot of stuff.
Okay. And, that's good.
Yeah. And I remember, the best thing that I bought, and it's like still shocking to me that I got it home. I bought like a whole table.
What?
It was so beautiful. I just like, it was this like small like coffee table and it had a beaded like mosaic on the top of like some elephants or something. And then it was all woodwork down the side. And then there was 4 stools that were elephants that fit underneath.
Do you still have that?
Yeah.
Is that yours?
Well, it's in the basement now because
How did you get that home?
So I said I wanted it, and like they were like, okay, come back like tomorrow and get it, and they had wrapped it all up in a box for me.
Wow.
And I don't remember how I got it to the university.
But you did.
But I don't remember how I got to the airport, but I brought it and I literally just put it down in front of the ticket like booth. They couldn't even fit it like through the where the suitcases are supposed to go, and I just left it there.
You're like, make it work.
I didn't pay anything extra. I was just like, we'll see if it makes it. And God. I didn't like nothing special. And it came right off at Bradley. Like there it was waiting for me in like perfect condition.
That's incredible. Yeah. And do you still have it?
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Some of the beadwork started to get damaged. So I like put it away until the kids are like older. But
that's incredible.
Yeah. I feel like that wouldn't fly now.
No.
But and also, I even feel like going the other way, like it wouldn't have worked. Yeah. But I was just like, here you go.
But that's part of the thing. You just like walk away and you're like, la, la, la. I love it. I love it. I wish. I was actually very keenly aware of how much I wanted to buy or how much I thought I could manage getting home. And so I really didn't buy a ton of stuff at all.
Yeah.
And now I feel terrible about it, that I missed out on. I definitely bought shea butter. Because that is something that I really wanted. And I got some fabric, but really not as much as I should have. Yeah. And then especially once we got back, I was like, we probably had some space. I could have gotten something else. But then I thought, this is just a good reason for me to go back.
I was going to say, I'm sure you'll go back.
I really think I will. Everybody was surprised that I came back. They were like, I thought you were going to stay. And I was like, I thought I was going to stay. Which kind of brings me, so you're a mom, you have 2 kids, and this sort of brings me to this, this part of the trip that was the best for me, which was living in this house. It's the family house. It's my husband's family's house, and it's a pretty large house. So there are a lot of people in there, and it just felt like a village within a village, just in our house. Meanwhile, the house is actually in a village and there are people around. We didn't really know many of those people, but in the house, there were, 20 people were in the house at any given time, coming in and out. And my mother-in-law is I think there are 2 sisters left. It's 3 of them left of maybe 6 of them. And so when she comes into town, everybody comes from everywhere, from like 4 hours away, from 2 hours away. So the house was packed with nieces and nephews and cousins and uncles and aunties and all of that stuff. And everybody was just so happy to see her and by extension, happy to see us. And then James and his brother and sister and their families, like, were all coming. So it was basically a family reunion. And it was just so incredible to be around so many people, one that look like us, right? And cousins and aunties and stuff for my kids to play with. Like, it was just a really incredible time. And a friend of mine just said to me today, she was like, when I go home, I wonder, why am I here doing this by myself? You know what I mean? Like, the way that we manage our nuclear families here in the States, it's like you, your husband, and your kids. And if you're lucky, your parents live half an hour away. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, have you thought about, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm really into the village right now, and like that will get me back to Ghana in a second. Yeah, I mean,
that's something I'm keenly aware of, and something that I know that in other cultures, like, they raise children differently, and sort of the pressures. I heard, I don't remember where I heard this, but they had done a study, and like, America is the only place where like having kids makes you less happy.
Oh my God.
And it's because of the stress and the, it's financial and the, the time, and you don't have the support. And I feel like I have a situation where I do have pretty good support, but it's not like enough. What you're talking about, that type of support. So yeah, it's something I do, and we've sort of toyed with my mother-in-law moving in with us, and like, then, maybe we'd be able to have that sort of like,
but that's a whole,
but then it comes with other things. Yeah. But so definitely I really was into it. And the other thing that was pretty cool that reminded me of when I was younger, and I mean, we always think about the time when we were younger, whatever that time was, whether that's the 2000s or the 70s or the 90s or whatever, that it was a easier time or a simpler time. Like, kids were just walking around in the village, like 9-year-olds with 2-year-olds. The 9-year-old was sent to the store to pick up something, and the 2-year-old really wanted to go. And we just stopped for a second. We were like, hey, where are you guys going? Are you okay? And then they went off. And then they came back with a tray of eggs, and everything was fine. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, it was fine. And there are enough of us around that everybody is sort of looking out for everybody. And if you needed a minute, like, I totally went and hid under the blanket, like, for a couple hours every so often. But you could, because you knew that people were around and you were going to be fine. And you can come back as a much better, refreshed human being. Yeah, that's one thing about this neighborhood that I have hope for. I mean, it's hard when the kids are so little, but that we have so many kids in this neighborhood that are young. Like, I feel like when they get a little bit older, like, I have this like vision that, like, I can be like, Xavier, go play with your friends, like, they can come over
back
to
later.
our house, and because I did in our neighborhood, my best friend lived up the street, my sister's best friend lived up the street, and we were constantly just going back and forth, and it was like not a big deal. And like, I hope that for my kids too. It doesn't help right now, but
right, because they're too little now. In a couple of years, but I really like that. I like that. I've done like just pop in dinners, like with a neighbor across the street. Whatever you're eating, whatever we're eating, we'll just combine them together, because in just that 45 minutes of our kids playing together and not hounding us in the back, like, sometimes the questions my kids ask me, it's like it makes the back of my eyelids twitch. It's like one more question and my head might explode. But if the kids from across the street are here, you guys are going to play for 45 minutes. You're not going to talk to me at all. And then it's going to be time for bed. Like, I feel like it's a mutual distraction that just is good for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it.
Whenever I tell my husband that my sister's coming to visit, I think he's going to have a heart attack, because it's 5 kids under 4 years old when she comes over.
That is a lot.
But I love it because, Xavier's playing all day with his cousin, and it's like they keep themselves busy, and so still a lot of work. But
I know, but that part, just sort of like making sure they've eaten, making sure they're okay, like diffusing 1 or 2 things. But it's actually pretty surprising. I was listening into them playing, and I decided pretty early on, I was like, I'm only going to go and investigate when it's a prolonged cry, right? Like your typical wah, your like typical scream or whatever. it would go away so quickly. It's when it was a prolonged thing that someone actually got hurt or someone actually, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But just those little things, you just sort of perk up a little bit and then it's gone in a second and you just don't even have to go and worry about it. The biggest thing that I had to worry about is that there was a herd of goats and I don't even know what you call a gaggle of chicken, I don't know, that would come by in the front of the house every morning. They just came and like hung out in the front of the house. And so if the gate was open, then Emery would be like drawn to them out of the gate into the actual village, which isn't terrible, but there's cars on the road.
Right.
The good thing is that the roads are not paved, so the cars are not going that fast. Like they're not speeding down because
right.
you could fall into a ditch really easily, but also you could fall into a ditch. So we couldn't really allow them free reign and like free to roam everywhere. But he was really into these chicken and these goats that would come by every morning, and it was just a really good time. I really loved it. The other thing I wanted to talk about, the place I wanted to talk about was we got to visit Kumasi. Did you get to go to Kumasi?
So we just drove through. Kumasi,
yeah. So Kumasi is 4 hours away from Ghana. It's 4 hours away from Accra, but in traffic ended up being about 6 hours of us in the car, especially with stopping at rest stops and that kind of thing. But Kumasi is where the Asante kingdom is, like the base of it is, and the Asante kingdom used to encompass most of Ghana and a bit of some of the neighboring countries. So it's a big deal, and now I think it's just in Kumasi now. So anyway, they have a lot of history and artifacts and things, and a palace there, and there's a current Asante Hene, which is the king. There's a current king there, and they still have a monarchy and a whole thing going on. So we got to tour the palace. We didn't get to meet the Asante Hene, but we got to see his picture, and then just learn about the Asante tribe and all the things that they accomplish and were able to manage through colonialism and all the things, and see all the beautiful kente cloth and all of the beautiful I almost said trinkets, but that's like terrible. Just like the really cool artifacts that they have on display there are just really cool to see. And also to see all of the heads of state from all over the world who've come to the Asante tribe to see, because that's how important they were, at a time and continue to be. So that was a really cool, historical thing to get to see. But if you're going to go to Kumasi, I cannot stress enough, please fly. Oh my God, please fly. And I say that even knowing that we drove through a ton of towns that were interesting to see, because they're like towns that are basically built up around the road. And that's part of why the traffic is so intense, because you get to this point and you're all choked up because these shops, these pop-up stands are right on the road, and then everybody swarms the traffic and they're trying to sell to whoever's in the car and whatever. And so that's part of what slows it down. It is beautiful countryside. It is I guess if you do it one time, that's enough, and then fly every time after that. But definitely with kids in the car, driving 6 hours was a hell of a trip. And then the other place that we got to see was a Kosambo. I didn't go because I opted to take a mom break on that trip.
Good for you.
So James took the kids on an overnight to his uncle's house, and then they went to a Kosambo, and it was just a beautiful, on the river. They did a boat tour, and he said just the views of everything was beautiful, and the hotel they stayed at was up really high, so you could see this really incredible view of the valley or the whatever. And there's a dam there, which at a certain point the country was getting, I don't know, a whole lot of their power from this dam, and now they're not, because they're getting power from other sources. But it's a beautiful thing to see and a very cool place to be. So if you can visit a Kosambo, then definitely do that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was food. Do you remember the Ghanaian food?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about food. I like Ghanaian food, but only when they accommodate me by not putting all of the pepper. Like all of the pepper. So my favorite thing is peanut butter soup. What's your favorite?
Yeah, I really like that too. And there's usually fish in it, right?
So it can be anything in it. I get it with
Yeah.
chicken. Well, you're vegetarian.
Well,
so.
then I was eating more stuff, but there was a little market outside of my dorm, and so I'd go down like pretty much every night and get dinner, and you could get like fresh fruit, like a whole pineapple or mango, and they'd cut it up for you, which was like so great.
Yes.
Or coconut, and then they had all the different hot food too, so I'd usually get that.
Yeah, and in Ghana, it's called groundnut. They don't say peanuts.
That's right, yeah.
They say groundnut. And I was like, what is groundnut? And they're like, I think you call them peanuts. I was like, because that's what they're called. I was trying so hard not to do that every time because they're speaking English, but it's like the Queen's English and the Queen's terms for all of the things. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And I heard myself saying a couple times like, oh, you mean peanuts? And I had to catch myself because they don't mean peanuts. They mean groundnuts. Like that's what they're called. And I was just trying not to be like a jerk American or like a jerk foreigner. I was like, that's not right. And try to fit in a little bit better. But the groundnut soup is really delicious. And then tilapia. Yep. I mean, you eat fish now, right? No, you don't eat fish anymore.
Then, yeah.
Okay. Tilapia is like a thing in Ghana, and grilled tilapia, fried tilapia, like it's just so delicious in every form. Like they just really know how to do it. And we went to this restaurant in Cape Coast, which I'm not even going to talk about because I talked about it in the last episode. In preparation for going, we talked about visiting the Cape Coast castles. And I really wanted to go to Elmina, and we didn't get to go to Elmina again. We went to Cape Coast this time. Anyway, we were in Cape Coast and we stopped at this restaurant, and I was so mad at them because they took so long to make the food. Like so long. But that food was delicious. When I tell you that food was so delicious, I almost apologized to them for how mad it was because it was absolutely worth it. It was a grilled fish that just was incredible. And it was on the beach. And because we were there for so long, we got to see this beautiful sunset. And even the Cape Coast ocean water, beach water is dangerous. They don't even let you swim in that one. There's signs that say no swimming. I don't know why, but it looked pretty treacherous to me. So you don't get in the water at Cape Coast. And if you can go to visit the castles, definitely go visit the castles.
Yeah, we did that.
Which one did you go see?
We went to Elmina.
Yeah. I really wish I got to see that one. Yeah. But Cape Coast is beautiful and the story is the same. So if you see one, then I guess you see them all, kind of. I mean, one slave castle is another slave castle. Okay, and then the last thing, what should we talk about last? We did food, we did people. Oh, let's talk about people for another second.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were talking about how you said you went to visit and you had a Ghanaian roommate, and then when you went back, you thought you could stay in a hotel, but she was like, hell no, you have to stay with us.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Ghanaian hospitality.
Yeah. So when I went for my semester, she was just assigned as my roommate. And I think she wasn't sure about me at first, but we actually became like really close friends. And I stayed in contact with her for a long time. I haven't talked to her in a couple of years now, but so I stayed in contact with her the whole year when I came back. But when I was going back for my research, I didn't want to impose or anything. So I just rented a room at the university. It was during their break. And when I got there, her mom and her were just totally dismayed that I was not going to stay with them. And I was trying to be,
polite.
Right. And like, I don't want to impose, and I'll just, come over for dinner. And they were like, no. And I felt terrible because they were like moving people like out of like, a bedroom, right, to like give me a space to stay. Like they were like sharing a bed so I could have a bed. And I'm like, but I could just like,
right.
But it was really important for them to like have me there in their home. So I spent the whole, the whole month in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks like in their house. So that was really nice.
Yeah, that's Ghanaian hospitality. Like absolutely. Yeah. And it always feels, you're always like, I don't have to, I can just, and they're like, nope, you're doing it. And if you don't, you're going to upset me. Just like, all right, fine. I'll sleep on the bed.
Right.
But they are absolutely incredible. And again, like in terms of accommodating and welcoming, the way that I feel it most is through food, right? Like they totally like spicy food, and they absolutely made food for me on the side. Like they pull it aside and they're like, okay, here's your little, she made a whole tray of food. And I was like, I cannot eat this much food. She said, yeah, but I made it for you. So I was eating that food for 2 days, but I really appreciate that they're just so welcoming. Cause in other places, I mean, if you went to New York City, like nobody's going to talk to you at all.
Right.
People are just going to like mow you over, but you totally stand out and stick out and look like somebody who needs to be talked to. And it's not, I mean, obviously there are bad people everywhere, but generally you're not going to be in trouble in Ghana. It's like a nice, friendly, I would say mostly as safe as any place can be. You know what I mean? You shouldn't I think we were laughing earlier about the situations that you put yourself into as a young adult, that with your adult eyes, you're like, oh, I could have died. By getting on a motorcycle with someone I didn't know, with no cell phone, with like no way of contacting people. Like I've done that before by going into the arch, like in the dark stairwell. Right. We don't know what's going to happen, but we hope it's going to be fine. And I think in Ghana, like you're going to be fine. And so I think a lot of places get a bad rap, right? So-and-so place is super dangerous. And I think that there's this story about Africa as a whole, forgetting that there are a shit ton of countries there. You know what I mean?
So I will never forget this. When I first got there the first day and I had to go to the international office to register for classes or whatever, and someone was in there. And before I had gone, I had a few people be like, oh, where are you going? And like, oh, be safe. You get a lot of like, be safe, be safe, And so we're in the office and I'm registering for classes. And this Ghanaian was like, oh, I would never go to America. Like, I would definitely get robbed. Like, it's way too dangerous. Like, and I was like, wow, okay, that's his perception of like where I live. And like, and I feel safe where I live, but like, he was like, oh my God, oh no.
This is a man. He's like, I can't handle it.
So that was like a good sort of like.
Yeah, a reminder that it's all relative, right? And even now there's this one story of Africa that like all of Africa is destitute. It's like, I feel like that story of the poor kid with the fly, right? And the 79 cents a day is the same story that's being told all the time. And while that is a reality in some places, like that is not what all of Africa looks like. Right. And it's not what all of Ghana looks like. It's not, you know what I mean? There's so much, like we were driving around and I saw like Deloitte on the side of a building. Mm-hmm. I saw Deutsche Bank on the side of another building. There are skyscrapers and rooftop pools and I went to a sushi bar while I was there, like a fancy ass sushi bar while I was there. And I was just like, this place is hip. And they're just like other places. There are places where if you have a ton of money, you can be. And if you don't, then you can't be there. But it's not like everywhere is destitute. You know what I mean? And they're fancy people and they're people in Porsches driving around and Cayennes. Like, it's just, I was reminded of how incredible this place of how incredible Ghana is and how incredible like Africa is in general. And that I would say we as like Americans, you don't even allow for that to be a possibility because you're so convinced by the things that people say. Right. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed being able to see both sides of Ghana. And I think I saw a pretty fancy side. I'm not super fancy. Like, we're not super fancy, but there are some fancy people in James's family. So I really enjoyed being able to see like, the family house is really nice and is in the village, like right next to the village where it's not really like the roads are not paved and there are goats walking in the street, right? It's like a village. And then we go to family member's house somewhere else and they've got hot water heaters. Like, that is the level of fancy that I'm looking for, okay? Like, hot water heater, water pressure so I can wash my hair. Like, that is fancy. And then his aunt took us to the sushi bar and the rooftop pool. Like, that is also fancy. So I really enjoyed being able to live almost like a Ghanaian, right? It's not like I look like a tourist, but I feel like I lived like a Ghanaian because I didn't stay in a hotel and I didn't do like a bunch of organized tours, you know what I mean? Where you're like herded around with a bunch of other people who all stand out. I got to really sort of blend in as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And in lots of situations, I tried not to talk. I was like, maybe if I don't say anything, they'll think I'm Ghanaian. And I was walking by silent, and someone in tree, I didn't know, but apparently this was saying, oh, there's an American girl right here. That girl is from America. Move out of the way. That girl is from America. And I was like, what? I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So I encourage people, if you can, and I know not everybody can, but if you can get an experience abroad that is not just a hotel stay or like a purely tourist stay, and you can somehow get yourself in with a family, you can really see a part of a country, especially a country like Ghana, that you really otherwise wouldn't get to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is a privilege that a lot of people don't have to get that access to, real
taste the street food.
Yeah, because you can't really buy that. It's like you have to know somebody. Yeah.
You really, really can't. So I'm still like on high from this trip. We're only one day back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you get back yesterday?
Yeah, we got back yesterday. I've only slept in my bed one night, so I'm still pretty high on this trip, and I'm really grateful for being able to take the kids. They're 3 and 5 years old, and I don't think that any amount of showing pictures or talking about Ghana could really get to them the way being in Ghana has.
For sure. Yeah.
Right? They're talking about, when we got there, Emery didn't, I don't like Ghana. I want to go home.
Aww.
Right? And when it was time to go home, he was like, why? I want to stay in Ghana. Right? And so just the way that they are remembering, they knew, and we were there for 23 days. So they knew the names of everybody, all the family members. They were calling by name. They were talking about things in a way, like a real way of having really experienced it, even beyond getting to be there for 7 days. You know what I mean? So I'm really grateful for being able to have that experience for me, but also for them. So I'm super excited. Do you think you'll get to go back, or you'll?
I think we definitely will. It's just when. I think for us, like for you, it's a little different because it's family. Yeah. But I think for us, we'll wait till the boys are a little bit older, or we'll go without them.
Right?
I don't know. That's a real possibility too.
Oh my God.
But we'll see.
I hear you. Well, thank you so much for talking about this with me. I want to wrap up this part, but before we go, I wanted to do our Mom So Hard tip. So every week we do a Mom So Hard tip, which is just like, could be big, could be small, but just something that you find yourself doing that you think would be helpful to other people. So what's your Mom So Hard tip?
So something that I started a couple months ago, which I wish that I had known about since the beginning, since my first pregnancy, is a workout program online that's called Mama Strong.
Okay.
She's a personal trainer that has focused solely on prenatal and postnatal sort of like physical fitness for like 9 years, I think. She just had her 3rd child.
Wow.
And they're 15-minute videos a day. You don't need any special equipment. It's $5 a month. And so I've been doing it it's like I can't go to the gym for 45 minutes. I can't even get out to run, but like I can usually do 15 minutes a day, and I've like already I feel so much stronger.
Oh, that's great.
And mentally it helps me, and so that's one thing. I wish, like, I think I would have had different pregnancies and probably a different like postnatal experience the first time if I had it. So, but better late than never.
Absolutely. So it's called Mama Strong.
Yep.
And it's just 15-minute videos.
Yeah. So every day. So she has 3 programs. She has like the pregnancy, new mama, which is if you have a child less than 6 months old, and then mama, which is anyone, like people with like teenagers do it,
Mm-hmm.
So you pick. And so she does 15-minute videos in each of those programs every day.
That's
so you
great.
just do it. And then she has these fixes for if you have low back pain, or if you're like, want to work on your stomach, or like foot pain, different things to help you with different areas.
That's great, because I think a lot of us get caught up in thinking that you have to go to the gym or you have to be doing something for hours and hours and hours. But really 15 minutes.
It's made a huge...
It's consistency that matters more than
and it's
time.
made a huge difference.
That's great.
I'm able to just like fit it in.
Well, I will look into it to see, because I could use I'm having a like twinge in my knee that just feels like a inaction or like a low activity kind of pain. So I could use something. I will definitely look at it. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you get to Ghana.
Thank you. Me
soon.
too.
I really do. And I will probably be back myself. Everybody was like, we'll see you. I was like, you probably will. All right. So until next time, please come back anytime. We can talk about Ghana all day, every day. But you also have 2 boys, so I'm sure we could share 1,000 stories and more as Issa gets older. You'll totally be into the boy mom. It's a vibe, the boy mom, especially like 2 boys. So come back anytime and we'll talk.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This show is produced by Tom Ortiz at Digital Stream Radio. It's available for download on Podbean. Follow us at Facebook at Breezy Moms Podcast or email us at breezymomspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, don't stress, just breathe.